Martyn Wyndham Read, very, very familiar name to some of us. Martyn has performed at Northwich before. I first came across Martyn in, I would say, the 1970s. I know he was part of the 60s folk revival, but I first came across him in the 70s at Appleton Thorn Folk Club, Maggie Goodall's club.
I think it was my mother who took me in my pram there.
I think it was.
That's it.
I think it was. I think our prams were lined up side by side, actually. Yeah, that's
You're
what it
still on
was.
gin and tonics, though, weren't you?
But that was my first love of a folk club, I suppose. And Martyn came along amongst names like Martin Carthy, Clive Gregson, Christine Collister, Tony Rose, John Kirkpatrick, Sue Harris, Eric Bogle. Um, he's certainly time served as a folk performer. Uh, Wonderful stories. He's an artist as well, but his stories tend to paint a picture, whether it's of life in the Australian outback or a broken romance or whatever. So I think you're in for a treat this evening. Something to look forward to if you haven't seen Martyn before. So Martyn Wyndham Read, over to you.
Thanks very much, Brenda. It's great to be here. I'm a bit anxious because one of our cats is hobbling about there, and he's likely to make a sudden lunge. So if there's a cat suddenly appears, it's his name is Bruce. Anyway, just also going back quickly to a thing that Brenda said earlier on about never really knowing when a poem stops. You know, if there's that pause at the end of it. There's an Australian poem that goes, "There was a poet from Wallaroo whose verses ended at line 2." And so it helps it really to finish them, I think. I'm going to sing this song. It's great to be here virtually. There's Cat's just about. No, he's not. Oh, he's gone off. This is a virtual song for the virtual concert. Song written by Graham Miles. And because of all this lockdown and everything that we're in at the moment, it's a great song, this, because it travels all over the world. It's called The Old Man of the Sea. It's a lot of miles I've travelled, now I've just a few to go, before that I am home again, where the silver Shannon flows. So spoke Christy Farrell, the old man of the sea. 30 years on the merchant ships, a long ways from Lochrie. I've been around this great big world, all on its 7 seas, often spent the night on deck, just listening to the breeze. I've seen the red sun rising over Fuji's silver crown, and seen the same sun dipping down over smoky New York town. I've often watched the smiling moon rolling over Lebanon, seen shooting stars come showering down to the harbour of Hong Kong. I've seen the northern lights up there in the Arctic's frozen waste, and once I sailed around the Horn where them clipper ships did race. We followed shoals of flying fish while I've been off Africa's shore. marvelled at the coral reef, where them giant waves heave and roar. I've seen the Southern Cross at night, as bright can be, reflecting like some milky pearls upon down under seas. I've seen the giant liners with their lights all shining bright, glittering like some diamonds in the velvet black of night. I've seen the ocean sparkle under lightning in a storm, and yes, I've heard the mermaid sing in the silvery light of dawn. It's a lot of miles I've travelled, now I've just a few to go before that I am home again, where the silver Shannon flows. So spoke Christy Farrell, the old man of the sea. 30 years on the merchant ships, a long ways from Loughree. 30 years on the merchant ships, a long ways from Loughree. A long ways from Loughree. We got. Thank you.
Can you unmute
Ian,
yourself,
can you unmute?
please? That's it. Unmute. How do I do that? Sorry, hover the cursor at the bottom of the screen.
It's done. It's done.
Can you move your...
You're okay now. You're okay now.
You've done it? We're okay. Ian's done it.
I was looking for Martyn and not Diane. That's why I couldn't find you in the list.
Okay, so am I muted now?
No, you're good.
You're unmuted now.
All right. Oh, well, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. My fault.
Maybe better if I'm muted. Many years, I went out to Australia in the early 1960s, and I make sure it is the 1960s, not the 1860s. I went out there, and there was a folk revival going on. There was a bit of a folk boom and everything. And in Melbourne, in Victoria, a lot of the pubs closed at 6 o'clock at night. So there were no folk clubs held in pubs. Most of the folk singing was done in coffee bars, which stayed open later. And then every Saturday night, there'd always be a sing-around somewhere, some party. So we'd all congregate at this party and the songs would float around. And because in those days, a lot of people were emigrating from Britain and taking their songs with them. And this is one of the songs that arrived there. I believe it originates from the northeast of England, and it's just I Drew My Ship. I drew my ship into the harbour. I drew it close where my love lay. I drew it close, fine to her window, to listen to what my love did say, who's there, close at my window, who knocks so loud and would come in? It is your true love who loves you dearly. So rise, my love, and let me in. Well, slowly, slowly got she up, and slowly, slowly came she down. But before she got her door unlocked, her own true love had come and gone. He's brisk and broad, he's far away, he's far beyond the raging main, where fishes dancing and bright eyes glancing have made him quite forget his own. Yes, I can't remember. You are muted now. Please, Oh, what happened there?
You're unmuted.
Am I still muted?
No, you're unmuted now.
Okay, I don't. Am I only muted when I'm singing?
I'll don't worry. I'll handle it. Ignore anything on the screen.
Yes, because I have absolutely no idea what to do with computers. I have no skills whatsoever, but I am getting better because I've now learnt how to spell DVD. Which I think is sometimes I get the D's round the wrong way, but I think I've got it right. Springtime coming on, so this is a song called "The Springtime It Brings on the Shearing." It's a time of year in Australia where the shearers are off, or used to be off on their shearing jaunts. And I'm talking about the days when they used the blade shears, the sort of hand clipping shears. Nowadays, of course, they use the electric shears, which is much easier. But you had to shear at least 100 sheep a day with the blade shears. If you couldn't shear 100 sheep a day, you weren't regarded much of a shearer. And the world record for blade shearing was created by a bloke by the name of Jackie Howe, who in 1892, I think it was, shore 321 sheep in 8 hours and 20 minutes, which was a world record, which I think is still held today. But he did spend 2 weeks in hospital after, and so did the sheep. But this song is just called "The Springtime It Brings on the Shearing." Oh, the springtime, it brings on the shearing, and it's then you will see them in droves to the West Country stations all steering to find them a job off the coves, with a ragged old swag on his shoulder and a billy quart pot in my hand. Oh, I tell you, we'll astonish the new chums to see how we travel the land. From the Billabong, Marie Loudon, to the far Tatiara and back, all the mountains and plains are well trodden by the men on the Wallaby track, with a ragged old swag on his shoulder and a billy quart pot in my hand. Oh, I tell you, we'll astonish the new chums to see how we travel the land. There are many who stick during shearing and then shoulder their swags on their back. For the rest of the year they'll be steering on the well-beloved Wallaby track, with a ragged old swag on his shoulder and a billy quart pot in my hand. Oh, I tell you, we'll astonish the new chums to see how we travel the land. And after the shearing is over and the wool season's all at an end, well, it's then you will see those flash shearers making Johnny cakes round on the bend, with a ragged old swag on his shoulder and a billy quart pot in my hand. Oh, I tell you, we'll astonish the new chums to see how we travel the land. So there we go. Thanks very much. Springtime it brings on the shear. This is another song that goes back to those early days in Australia for me, when people were having parties and singing songs, bringing them songs from all over the world, really. And this one I learnt from a really good friend, sadly no longer with us. Her name was Glenn Tomasetti, and she used to sing this song with another really good friend of mine, bloke by the name of Brian Mooney, and Brian lives in Tasmania nowadays, and he's a brilliant artist. He's an absolutely fantastic artist. I think you can look him up on this www dot thing, just Brian Mooney dot whatever com. And you can see some of his paintings there, and especially the paintings of the outback in Australia, just absolute magic. And this one is just called Cockle Shells, and I believe it probably has its origins in sunny Scotland. When cockle shells turn silver bells and mussels grow on every tree, when blooms the rose 'mongst frost and snows, then will my false love prove true to me. Oh, waly, waly, our love is bonny, a little while when first it's new. But love grows old and waxes cold and fades away like morning dew. Oh, had I wist before I'd kissed that love had grown so ill to win, I'd have locked my heart in a box of gold and tied it up with a silver pin. Oh, waly, waly, our love is bonny, a little while when first it's new. But love grows old and waxes cold and fades away like morning dew. Originally a poet, you are muted now. Please shift and command What happens? Why?
No, you're all right.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
Well, I'm not. I'm just going to. This next song is called Irish Lords, and it was originally a poem by a bloke by the name of Charles Souter. And Charles Souter was a Scotsman who went out to Australia in the 1860s as a medical student and eventually qualified to become a doctor. And what his connection with Irish Lords was a sheep and cattle station near the town of Ivanhoe is, I'm not sure. There's quite a remarkable coincidence here because there's a town called Ivanhoe in New South Wales which has Irish Lords sheep station near to it. There is also another town called Ivanhoe in South Australia which also has a sheep station called Irish Lords near to it as well. So I'm not sure what the connection is between the two. But a few years ago, I was out in Australia and I did a concert in a place called Echuca. And Echuca is up on the River Murray on the northern part of Victoria. And I noticed that just about 400 miles north of Echuca was the town of Ivanhoe. And I thought, well, we've got a day off tomorrow. What about going up to Ivanhoe and going and finding the Irish Lords sheep station? And I'll give them a copy of the CD that I made with the Irish Lords on it. So I thought the next morning when I woke up, I thought, yeah, it's not only 400 miles up there, but it's 400 miles back down again as well. So I think I'll just post it to them. So I posted the CD off to them, and I know they got it because about a month or so later, I got a very nice letter back from them, thanking me very much for the CD and saying that they'd spent many, many happy hours looking at it, and could I please send them a cassette instead? So this is the song that, as I say, it came out of a book which was given to me by a very, very dear friend who's sadly no longer with us, Mary Ball. And this is the song which I made out of the poem, Irish Lords. The barley grass was 2 feet high, the billabongs were full, the brogues danced a minuet, the world seemed made of wool. The nights were never wearisome, the days were never slow. When first I went to Irish Lords, on the road to Ivanhoe, the frost was on the barley grass as we passed the homestead rails. The darling Jack has piped us in with his turns and trills and scales, and youth and health and happiness sat on the saddle bow, and Mary lived at Irish Lords, on the road to Ivanhoe. And everywhere was happiness, fates were fair and kind. We drank the very wine of life, we never looked behind. And Mary, Mary everywhere was flitting to and fro, when first we went to Irish Lords, on the road to Ivanhoe. The window on a leafy bough where the golden banks you grew, stared like a dead man's glassy eye, for the roof had fallen through. No flowers in her garden bed, her voice stilled long ago. When last I went to Irish lords, on the road to Ivanhoe. I'm going to sing a convict transportation song. Andrew earlier on did his poem about the poaching, and this song really has a lot to do with the transportation of convicts to Australia, and especially from the Highlands, the Highland clearance. A lot of convicts were being transported, and for stealing a sheep, you would get a 7-year transportation to Australia, or you had to be careful because if the judge was in a bad mood, you could be hanged for stealing the sheep. But if you were lucky, you got a 7-year sentence. And the thing is, you get across to Australia, and if you behaved yourself within the early part of those 7 years, after 4 years, you were given a freedom pardon and given a block of land so you could start a new life. So it was a good opportunity for people to go out to Australia and start a new life. And there's a little short poem just to show you how clever some of them were at getting out of things. And Long Bay, it mentions Long Bay. Long Bay was a jail in Sydney. There was an old crim from Long Bay, studied verbs and grammar each day. He changed all the functions of verbs and conjunctions and shortened his sentence that way. There you go. I'm just going to have a sip of tea.
Very good.
So the song is called The Far and Fatal Shore. On that very day we landed, chains and irons on our feet, 4 long months out on the ocean, bitter grief and bread to eat. 14 years of transportation for a crime that killed no man. But the keepers caught and tried us, sent us to Van Diemen's Land. Those of us who crossed the ocean to this far and fatal shore knew our lives would change forever, and we'd see our homes no more. Some too weak to stand unaided, on the deck they lay alone. The dead were gathered up together, to dark waters they were thrown. 14 years stretched out before me in this fair and shining land, where each day is spent in toiling, breaking rocks or shifting sand. But there's joy and not despair now, for we're told there will be ways for us transports to make homes here, and it's where we'll end our days. There's a lady from old England, and from Bristol she was sent. 7 years for taking clothing, just for warmth was her intent. But we'll join our lives together, and out in the bush we'll stay, clearing land and running cattle, from the dawn to end of day. So you sent us from old England to this land of dust and flies, but you never saw the beauty of the bush or starlit skies. Sent us transports to Australia, while in England you did stay. Seems to me you got it wrong, mate. Should have been the other way. There you go.
Thank you, Martyn. I'm sitting here just mesmerised by listening to you and keeping an eye on the chat at the same time. So I've not sort of given you a one song warning. Could you do one more for us now, please?
I don't know anymore.
You don't know anymore. I find that hard to believe.
What I'll do is I'll make one up.
Okay, you do that.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll phone a friend and get him to make one up.
And while I'm at it, I'll give Ian Glenn warning that he's starting off the second half for us, please.
Okay, good. I'll look forward to that. A few years ago, my favourite wife, Danny, you probably may have seen, and I were living in France, and we ran these courses, the Le Jeu Linéaire experience, where we had tutors from Mike Silver, I can't think of, Dave Fletcher and Bill Whaley, Harvey Andrews. Who else do we have? I can't, it's just completely gone out. I start to forget things now, and I put it down to that 4-letter word, age. And one of the tutors was Mike Silver, and one evening we were just sitting having a glass of orange juice, and Mike asked me what sort of got me into folk music, and I explained that I went out to Australia to work as a jackaroo on a sheep and cattle station. A jackaroo is like an apprentice on the land. You learn all the different aspects of shearing sheep, looking after cattle, horses and everything. And you learn all that, and after a certain period of time you will have done your sort of apprenticeship, and you could have end up managing or owning your own sheep station. So I went out there, and it was whilst I was on the station that I heard a couple of the old station hands, they're like the farm hands, singing Australian songs. And I just thought, wow, these songs are absolute magic. They've got a magic and a character all of their own. I want to learn more about them and what they're about. So that's what I've been doing for the last how many years. And Mike Silver wrote this song. Have you had Mike at the club? Mike Silver? He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, as you probably know. And he's a good friend, great bloke. And he wrote this song just called Jackaroo. Now, there is a chorus to this. Are you all muted? Yeah, but you can sing it to yourselves. I don't really know what muting is and everything. But the chorus goes, gone for a jackaroo, mum, gone for a jackaroo. Learn every trade till my bones are made. I'll be a jackaroo. Can you manage that? Yes, I'm sure you can. So, okay, so Jackaroo by, just get my foot right, written by Mike Silver. The time has come to make a move. My heart is not at ease. A world away is beckoning. There are places that I want to see. So I'll take a chance and give it a try. Who knows just what I will find? Will it be nothing or will it be gold? I'll know the answer in time. A cold wind is blowing down rainy streets in the city where I first sang. And the England that I know so well is changing for every man. Maybe I'll discover a place for to stop and find a home from home. And I'll overthrow the wanderlust that set me on the road. Gone for a jackaroo, Mom. Gone for a jackaroo. Learn every trade till my bones are made. I'll be a jackaroo. Across the Mediterranean, down Suez to old Bombay, all through the Tropic of Capricorn, to Australia I'm making my way. To work and to ride, to drove and to shear, come home by the light of the stars. Turn every day till the world is fair. I'll be a jackaroo. Gone for a jackaroo, Mom. Gone for a jackaroo. Learn every trade till my bones are made. I'll be a jackaroo. And I listen to the old man singing around the open blaze. Learn all the songs and the tunes I hear to ease my working day. And when the sun is sinking low, I'll write you a line or two. Did you ever think when I was born I'd be a jackaroo? Gone for a jackaroo, Mom. Gone for a jackaroo. Learn every trade till me bones are made. I'll be a jackaroo. Jackaroo by Mike Silver. Can I just show you this picture? That's Sally Sloane. Can you hear me? Am I being heard or not?
Yes,
You're fine.
That was Sally Sloane. Yes.
Thanks, Martyn. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Cheers.
She was a lovely lady. I met her a couple of times. She's a great lady. There's a great story about her, which I'll tell you later. It's a long story. When I was in Australia working on the sheep and cattle station, one of the jobs we had to do was to ride the boundary fences. And it was a station that was 30,000 acres, quite big. And it would take quite a while to ride round the boundary fences to check that the sheep weren't getting out and the cattle weren't getting out, things weren't getting in. And one of the jobs we had to do on the way round was to check an old bloke who was a rabbit trapper. And his job was to sort of try and keep the rabbit population down. And one of the laws on all sheep and cattle stations is that there's no alcohol allowed. And if you're caught with alcohol, you're given the sack. You just have to go. There's no excuse. And this bloke, I've forgotten what his name was, but he really liked to have his drink. And the thing is, the nearest pub would be 100 miles away, which he might make it there, but he probably wouldn't make it back. And what he used to do was concoct his own brew. And the stuff he used to drink was methylated spirits. And then he'd get some boot polish and melt the boot polish down, mix that up with the methylated spirits. And then he had a little secret ingredient, which he asked me never to tell anyone because, it would change things for everyone. But I see some of you are actually writing the recipe down. So if you want to know what the secret ingredient was, it was a little, I better not tell you. He put a little pinch of toothpaste in it. He reckons that made all the difference to it, made it better. But the results of that were absolutely horrendous. And he came sloping through the forest in the blazing summer sun. In one hand was a bottle, in the other was a gun. His beard was wild and wiry, and his hair was shaggy too. And his old straw hat was full of holes where tufts of hair poked through. I stood and rolled a smoke as he came with steady stride, and I scrutinised his features as he halted by my side. He was neither young nor was he old, but somewhere in between, and his heavy brows seemed to hide wild eyes of greyish green. He handed me the bottle. "You'll take a drink," he said, and I heard him cock the rifle which he pointed at me head. "Now you take a decent swallow, and you can be the first to try me brand new vintage and me cure for the first. Now the rifle was pointed at me, which wasn't plain to see, but a rifle up that close ain't that good to see. So I raised the bottle to me lips with a very shaky paw, and an urgent and a silent prayer to heaven then I praw. I swallowed twice, and God above, that brew it came from hell, and I felt me head exploding as it choked me dying yell. As I fell upon the dusty ground, I lay there deep in pain, and I swore that he could shoot me, but I'd never drink again. As the shock and pain receded, I struggled to my feet. That was awful, bloody awful, I could hear myself repeat. Then this maniacal brewer said, with yous I do agree. Now you hand me back the bottle and you hold the gun on me. So that was the brewer's sniper. So this another song that was written really about my experiences being in Australia. And this one's written by a really good friend, Mike O'Connor, who lives down in Cornwall. A great songwriter, sing quite a few of his songs, and Jackie sings some of Mike's songs as well. They're really good songs. And this song is called Away to Tintinara. Tintinara was the name of the little country town near where I worked on the sheep station called Emu Springs. And Tintinara is an Aboriginal word for the stars in Orion's belt. And also the liner that I went out to Australia on was called the Orion as well. And the Orion is the only constellation you can see in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. So this is the song that Mike wrote. It's just called Way to Tintinara. It's a way to Tintinara and miles to Emu Springs, every year a little farther, to the song the drover sings. It's 100 miles from Adelaide, the overlander rolls, then a dusty road to Sunrise, where open bushland calls, and the music on the wind is the creaking of the saddle, and the rhythm of the song are the hooves upon the ground, where the dusty runs forever through the dusty dray at night, and the stars like distant gems. I've forgotten the word. Da, da, da. Call me back. There's a lonely crossroad beckons to blue remember hills, and across the plains at Sugarloaf, where memory lingers still, on the sunlit plains of yesteryear, where lyrebirds dance and sing, are the echo of the voices a bushman's dreams can bring, and the music on the wind is the creaking of the saddle, and the rhythm of the song are the hooves upon the ground, where the fences run forever to the distant blue horizon, and like gems on distant velvet, stars echo to the sound. Call me back. And around the paddock dreaming, you know that she'll be right, and around the billy boiling, the stories last the night, for there's room enough to breathe here, and space to be your own, and to sing again the old songs, and watch the sun go down, and the music on the wind is the creaking of the saddle, and the rhythm of the song are the hooves upon the ground, where the fences run forever to the distant far horizon, and like gems on distant velvet, stars echo to the sound. Call me back. Mike, thank you very much. That's up the word. Just my brain was just floating away. I was heading back to Tintinara and seeing all those sort of places, and I just anyway. This next song, enough of these happy songs. Sad song, this one, collected by Vaughan Williams, of a lady by the name of Mrs. Verrill, who in 1911, I think it was, he collected it. Mrs. Verrill lived in a place called Lower Beeding, which is near Horsham in Sussex, not far from where I was brought up, in actual fact. And he collected this, as I say, 1911 on, I think it was Tuesday, July the 28th, at about 3:30 in the afternoon, I think, when he was just before he had a cup of tea with her. Anyway, this is a song, it's just called Fare Thee Well. Fare thee well, my dearest dear, fare thee well, adieu, for I must go to sea for the sake of you. Love, have a patient heart, for you must bear the smart, and think on me while I am far, far away. You'll have silver and fine gold, houses and land. What more could you desire, love? Don't complain. And jewels to your hand, and maids at your command. But you must think on me while I am gone. Oh, your gold shall be as dust after you are fled. Your absence strikes me lost and makes me dead. And when that you are from, your servants I'll have none. I'd rather be alone than in company. Then so nimbly she did dress, all in man's attire, all for to go to sea was her heart's desire. She cut her lovely hair, so no mistrust was there, that she a maiden was for all the while. Then from Venice we set sail, with our hearts content. Our ship would not be wrecked, away we went. From London but one day, our ship was cast away, which caused our hearts to be in disarray. When our ship was cast away, misfortune then did frown, for I did swim to shore, but she did drown. She now lies in the deep, in everlasting sleep, which causes me to weep forevermore. Here we go. Fare thee well.
Beautiful, thank you.
Right, Martyn, thank you very much for that. We're running a little bit late. That's a very sad song to finish on. Could you give us an encore, please, to send us home with?
Yes. Why not we do? We see. Do you fancy singing a song? I mean, singing a chorus.
Yes.
A Graham Miles song. It's such a great song to finish with. This one, I tend to always finish with it. My Eldorado, and the chorus for this goes: I never found my Eldorado, never walked down silver sands, never saw those gold pagodas, nor held a sunrise in my hand, but I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream and dream and dream. That's the first line. The second line of the chorus, a bit longer. So thank you so much. It's been a real experience for me. I'm sorry if I've sort of been muted and done all sorts of things, but I'm not really too sure what to do in these sort of things. It's been a real joy to hear you all. There's been some absolutely fantastic singers and some magical songs. It was really great, mesmerising. Just to sit here and listen to you all. So thank you so much. So we'll finish with this My Eldorado. And is Isabel Abelson and Ellie watching? Are they here? Do you know? The American friends. I spoke to her earlier on, but I don't know whether they've still here. But
I don't know if they're still here or not.
They were here earlier, but they've gone, I think.
They've gone, yeah. Okay, but they're good friends, and Isabel's organised quite a few tours for me in America. So I had my hopes. We all have hopes, all for what I'd be and for what I'd do. But as my youth soon bloomed and faded, so my dreams, they vanished too. I never found my Eldorado, never walked down silver sands, never saw those gold pagodas, nor held a sunrise in my hand. But I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream and dream and dream. I was just a kid, just a scruffy kid, and I held the world in my grubby hand. But then the world just turned to water and ran through my fingers onto the sand. I never found my El Dorado, never walked down silver sands, never saw those gold pagodas, nor held a sunrise in my hand. But I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream and dream and dream. The terrace streets were my Grand Canyon, the shipyard cranes were my redwood trees, the steelwork tips were my mountain ranges, and the brickyard ponds were my seven seas. I never found my El Dorado, never walked down silver sands, never saw those gold pagodas, nor held a sunrise in my hand. But I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream and dream and dream. Public bar was full of sailors. They laughed, they sang, they told their tales. But I just found the darkest corner, put down my glass, then walked away. I never found my El Dorado, never walked down silver sands, never saw those gold pagodas, nor held a sunrise in my hand. But I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream and dream and dream, and I just dream another dream.
Hey.